Welcome to Geek Bros Talk. This is my brother Mario, and I'm going to be Luigi this week. We're going to continue on with our kind of geeky brother theme. But fun fact about this, apparently, from what I read, I saw a headline of Mario is only 24 years old, according to Shigeru Miyamoto.
Wow, I thought he was older than that.
Nope. I mean, he should be much older than that, and you being Mario, you do look a lot older than 24. So
that's right. It's 24 times 3.
Maybe not that old, but we'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. All right. So this week we're going to be talking about a few different things. My brother's going to start talking about the new series Luke Cage, which is on Netflix, I believe, right?
Yep.
And we just want to kind of go into like a little dissertation about comic books as a medium versus movies and TV series. And then after that, we're going to discuss a little bit about Google's upcoming event, October 4th, I believe, which is in 2 days. So from speculation, do you think they're going to be releasing a new Google phone, which is going to be more of a marriage or union between Android and Chrome OS?
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we're going to go into a little bit of discussion about Twitch TV. How they've been acquired by Amazon for quite a while, but now they've recently went into beta for users being able to upload their own videos a la YouTube. So we're going to go get to some discussions about that and just the general marketplace for user-created content and videos. So let's go ahead and start off with Luke Cage. So tell me about Luke Cage. What is it about?
Yeah, so, for anybody who is familiar with the comic book world, everybody knows Marvel, DC, especially Marvel. Their movies have been extremely popular, very successful, and even their spin-offs onto their TV shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. Mm-hmm. However, where they've had the most success and the most acclaim is on Netflix. Anybody who's seeing the Daredevil series on Netflix, it is absolutely, in my opinion, incredible.
But did that not start off on CW? Or
no, I don't think
was
it started
Flash
on CW.
Or Arrow? I'm sorry, Arrow was on CW first, right?
Yes. Yeah, all the DC properties there are on CW because CW is owned by Warner Brothers, who owns DC.
Yes.
So you won't see any Warner property there. I'm sorry, not Warner properties, but Marvel properties. Mm-hmm. And so, with Daredevil, I thought that was an amazing series, and this is where I think the differences between having comic book characters in a movie versus an internet series versus a TV show. There's definitely differences. And then even definitely versus the original comic books. And so what Daredevil showed us, and then after that, Jessica Jones, which I have not seen, and now with Luke Cage, is that depending on the medium, you're able to do a lot more with it. Like, for example, if you watch any of these comic book movies, they have about 2 to 3 hours to basically condense decades of history of the comic book characters, of their storylines, and the whole universes into about 2 to 3 hours. And that is really, really, really difficult to do, even when you have sequels, because there's this long history of the characters and everything around it. And that's why in the comic book world, things are serialized, because there's so many stories to be told and you need that time to tell it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you move over to the TV show genre, like we just talked about, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or The Flash or The Arrow, any of those that are actually on TV, they do allow more time to actually get into the characters, get into the stories, and get into the world. However, I think the best medium for this is on the internet, specifically Netflix. Why? Because when you're on broadcast TV, you can't have the violence, the grittiness, swearing, and all those things that would really happen in real life and in the comic books. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the violence and a lot of the expletives, they don't do it just to do it. It's actually part of the stories and the characters. And in my opinion, nobody does it better than Netflix. Actually, Marvel does it, but having it on Netflix is the best way. And one of the things that I also love about it being on Netflix is that they give you all the episodes for that season all at one time. Mm. And so you do not have to wait till next week to watch it. You don't have to worry about commercials, and you do not have to worry about being censored. And you can watch it on your own time. Whereas if it's on TV, even if you have a DVR and so forth, you still have to wait, you still have to record it, and you still have to watch the commercials. And I know they have the episodes online too, but it's just not the same.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I really, really did enjoy Daredevil, especially how they showed the real human aspect of these characters set in the whole Marvel universe. Now, all of this Marvel has done wonderfully in the fact that they are able to integrate what's happened in the movies, because they don't disregard that those things happen. They are happening. However, they're also trapped, or not trapped, but they're deeply inside each character's world as well. Because anybody who's watched Daredevil, it's very realistic. You know, I mean, you would never think that when you're watching it that the Avengers happen, you know, like the Incredible Hulk or Thor or any of those things. And with Luke Cage, it's very, very similar in that sense. You know, I watched all the episodes. I did do a review of episodes 1 through 6, and I'll do a follow-up review for the remaining episodes and add more detail. But my overall thoughts on Luke Cage is this. Now, Luke Cage, when I was younger, I used to collect a lot of comic books. I had boxes of comic books. However, I wasn't like a super comic book geek, you know, meaning I didn't know all the storylines, I didn't know all the characters and so forth. However, I really did enjoy comic books. And Luke Cage, or also known as Power Man, I really, really didn't know much about him. I just knew that he had really super strength and he had pretty much a steel skin, you know, impenetrable almost. And I also knew that him, along with Black Panther, they were really one of the first main Black characters in comic books that were really, really popular and that they really pushed out, you know. So that was really a rarity, and I still think it's a rarity today. However, that's about all that I knew. So when I actually got into the Luke Cage series, I was kind of like a newbie. And right from the beginning, and I've said this in my review, but I'll expand upon it more now that I've seen the whole series. One of the things that I really love about this show is the fact that, just like Daredevil, it's very, very character driven. The guy who plays Luke Cage, his name is Mike Colter, that's the actor. Not only does he look like the Luke Cage in the comic books in terms of how big he is, how muscular he is, how powerful he looks, but he also has the character, the nuances, the characteristics. You know, he's not only strong physically, but he has to be mentally strong and also emotionally strong, because as you're watching the series, a lot of things happen. And also, each one of the characters, from the villain Cottonmouth, at least for the first half, his other partner Maria, to the other ones, the detectives Misty, and from a returning character from Daredevil, Clara, if I remember her name, or is it Claria, and Scarf, and there's so many other characters. They all play a role. Pops is in there. If you're familiar with Luke Cage, you know who that is. And also the whole setting of Luke Cage is in Harlem, and Harlem is its own character. So that's what I loved about it. I mean, I really was digging the characters and the story. However, to be honest with you, even after watching the whole series, because the second act, the first act is really slow. I didn't like that. The pacing was very slow, and it takes a lot of time to build up the characters, which makes sense. And you don't really see Luke Cage, the comic book character, until really the second half, you know. And even then, once again, it's really, really set in an urban, realistic atmosphere. So I kind of want to leave it at that, but I really think it's a really great series, although it is not as good as Daredevil. Now, I have not seen Jessica Jones. I've heard from a lot of people that Jessica Jones is even better than Daredevil, and Luke Cage was in the Jessica Jones series, and it's actually following the Jessica Jones series, so there's a lot of chronology there. And it's also setting up the next series, which is Iron Fist. And if I remember correctly, they're also going to come out with a series where all of these characters come together as the Defenders. That'll be the next Netflix series. So that's my overall thoughts about it. Good show. Not as good as the Daredevil, and I haven't seen Jessica Jones, but I don't think it's going to be as good as that one. But it's still solid, way better than anything that you could do in a movie or in a TV show.
Yeah, so you definitely say it'd be a pleasant surprise for you, right? Since you said you had gone into it not really knowing what to expect, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, you had mentioned a lot of times that one of the main reasons why you liked it is because it's so grounded, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you had mentioned like the first act was kind of slow because it wasn't him like as his I guess realizing like his superhero potential, right?
That's correct.
Do you think that's part of like I mean, would it be fair to say that I mean it makes sense when you have a lot longer amount of time to really build a character from becoming that kind of hero. So would you rather have him be like the hero from the start, or like would you give him some time to build up to that? I mean, I know you said you didn't enjoy the pacing in the first half, but
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on the medium, and I think when you do have it on a platform like Netflix, it makes more sense for you to take time with it, because in a movie, the origin part is pretty quick, right? I mean, usually you find out how they got their powers and what they can do within the first usually 30 or 40 minutes of the actual movie, if it's a 2 or 3 hour movie, right? And so it makes more sense in a longer series when you have more time for you to do that. And at the same time, I think just like comic books, it actually helps it because you actually grow an attachment to the characters in the actual story itself. Whereas if you're watching a comic book movie, unless it's really good, you don't really have time to connect with the characters. Like for example, if you're watching the Avengers, it's really hard for you to connect with each character, right? Not until you watch the individual movies or until you watch all of the series together.
I think
it's hard to do that.
yeah, Suicide Squad had the same problem. There just wasn't enough airtime for each.
Oh yeah, did you see Suicide Squad?
I did see Suicide Squad.
So what did you think about that? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I think the general consensus, and I'm not gonna I mean, I didn't have a lot of expectations going into it. I think the only reservation I had was I didn't really like Jared Leto as an actor. I knew going into the movie I wasn't gonna enjoy his character the way he portrayed the Joker. But for me, it's just like these DC movies, they're okay. I mean, at the same time, I still have my complaints about the Marvel movies just being so cliche and way too similar to each other. But at least the formula they have, it still works pretty decently as a movie, right? Like they have the build up, the pacing, it's all good. Whereas in Suicide Squad, I felt like a lot of it was just kind of like mishmashed together. It just didn't flow really well. Like I felt like it took a really long time to start up, and then each character didn't have like the right amount of airtime, or like they focused too much on Harley Quinn.
And Deadshot.
Yeah, it just like the pacing was kind of like up and down all over the place. Some of their motivations were really weird too to me. I mean, I guess we can go ahead and get into the spoiler territory. So
it's been out for a while now.
Yeah, let me try one of these. Hold on, we're gonna be talking about some spoilers, so you know what, just deal with it. Anyways, yeah. So basically, like the one part that stands out to me as far as like the motivation goes, is the Hispanic fellow with the flame powers. For some reason, at the very end, he's like, "Oh, they're part of my family now," even though that was like one of the very few lines throughout the movie. Like, I don't understand how he would have made that.
That jump.
Yes, just from like, I'm just kind of back here in the corner, and all of a sudden, I'm about to sacrifice my life for these people I don't even know. Yeah, just a lot of things like that, and it to me it's all over the place. Maybe if they had recut it, maybe it's just like that cut. Maybe if they came out with like a director's cut or something, it'd be a little better. But even then, yeah, I'm not sure what else they could do to really improve it. What they have.
Yeah, me neither. And I kind of felt the same way. I really had, like you, I don't know much about the Suicide Squad, so I didn't have a lot of expectations. But when I saw the trailers, it looked awesome. It really did, And after seeing Batman versus Superman, I was thinking it could only get better. Batman versus Superman wasn't a complete, wreck, but it wasn't what it could be or what I thought it could have been. And for me, when I watched Suicide Squad, I did like the first 30 to 40 minutes because I did like the intro to the characters. I personally did because.
Are you talking about like the stylized way they did it? Yeah.
Yeah, like the stylized, the way they flashed back to how they ended up in the situation that they did. And it's very difficult to do an ensemble comic book movie. Just going back to what we talked about earlier, it's very difficult, especially when it's a property that most of the general population aren't aware of, even people who've read comic books, And it reminds me a lot about Watchmen, but Watchmen was a better movie, I think, than Suicide Squad. So for me, Suicide Squad, like I said, first 30, 40 minutes, I like that. But then after that, it kind of ended up like that, where it became super generic. It was, like you said, a mishmash. it tried to put comedy in there, and then there's action, and then it was, like I said, generic is the perfect word. It made no sense that Enchantress and her brother were so super powerful. They're basically gods, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the Suicide Squad, which I'm sorry, they're not that powerful. I mean, you don't have that many metahumans, right? And the most powerful metahuman out of all of them is Diablo. You know, the guy who shoots fire. You got a guy who throws boomerangs. You have Harley Quinn with the bat. You have Deadshot who can shoot guns. And the most powerful one out of them was Enchantress, but then you find out she's the villain.
Yeah,
you know?
so maybe like you had mentioned earlier, how Luke Cage is really grounded, and maybe these villains would make a lot more sense in that kind of setting, right? Not fighting some, demigods, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it would have made a lot better sense if they fought, like a huge organization or a drug lord or something like that.
Other villains on their level, right, or something like that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about the power levels, and sometimes you overthink things, but I can't help it. Like if you think about the power level, at least that was displayed by the Enchantress and her brother, their equal would probably be Batman and Wonder Woman. Okay, I mean not Batman. I'm sorry, Superman and Wonder Woman. That would probably be more of a job for them, or even the whole Justice League. Because they're that powerful. But the way they got killed was so simple. I mean, what happened to her brother? He got blown up underwater with a bomb, with a croc.
Yeah.
All right, and that's no way. And then Enchantress, how did she get beat? Her heart got stabbed.
Yeah, she got stabbed. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had a moment of relapse when I think Harley was tricking her or whatever.
So I think that to me personally, I feel a lot better about after seeing the Wonder Woman trailer and the Justice League trailer. I think that they're going to make up for that. I think, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers, but I think they will. I think those two will be really good movies coming up.
It seems to be the general trend though for these DC movies coming out. I remember watching like Green Lantern way back in the day, and that was
yeah.
The Fantastic Four. We won't even go into those movies.
Oh yeah, really bad.
But yeah, so I mean, I think one of the saving graces for that movie is Will Smith as Deadshot was actually really good. I really enjoyed his performance in that.
Yes, I agree with you. Jared Leto as the Joker. I mean, I liked it, but I'm not going to put it up there with Heath Ledger or Jack Nicholson. I mean, for me, my favorite Joker is the Jack Nicholson. I love the 1989 Batman. I don't care what people say. That one's my favorite.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot. I even liked the sequel, and the Penguin, Danny DeVito. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. But, yeah, so, I mean, other notable comic book movies that you want to talk about that you felt did serious justice, I mean, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, so I am excited for the second one.
I absolutely love Guardians of the Galaxy.
And when you talk about like the ensemble, I think it did it, perfectly.
Perfectly.
The right amount of characters, the right amount of backstory, dialogue time, everything, right?
Yeah, and Guardians of the Galaxy, to me, it was my favorite out of all of them, even more than the Avengers, because once again, not many people are aware of them, are familiar with the characters. So most people were going in as a newbie,
Yep.
But when you saw it, it was so many things. It could have been a sci-fi action movie. It could have been a comedy. It could have been.
It was all those things, right? It was, yeah.
So I loved it, and the casting for that movie was perfect. I can't wait to see what they do with the sequel. I'm not sure. I don't know how they're going to make it better than the first one. I mean, just like Deadpool.
Yeah.
Deadpool, I love Deadpool as well. Not as much as Guardians, because to me, Deadpool is still generic, in a lot of places. Yeah. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy, it was just so unique. It was fun. It reminded me of a lot of different movies put together, but done excellently, or marvelously.
Yeah. I see what you did there.
Yeah.
So other than that, I don't get too hyped up for these comic book movies. So I mean, you said you're waiting for Wonder Woman, right, and Justice League. So
yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, after watching these series on Netflix, I prefer watching it on Netflix. it's just a much better experience, and you really get to take
Yeah.
your time.
What about these cartoon series? How have you liked these animated? I mean, I don't know if you've been keeping up with those,
Oh,
but because you know,
yeah.
Suicide Squad actually had a few animated movies before that one came out, and actually I watched one of them. I quite enjoyed it. You know, so we didn't really discuss that in depth either, right? So we only talked about the difference between the movies, comic books, and TV
Hmm.
series. But what about the animated TV series, right? Where um, those kind of span on a lot longer. Maybe the character development isn't the same, right? Because it's more of like on an episode to episode basis, right?
Yeah, and that's a great point because the animated series, especially the DC ones,
Mhm,
they are excellent.
mhm,
They're excellent. Great storylines, a lot of character development as well. Still not as much as the Netflix series, but if you watch any of the Justice League, or especially the Batman animated
mhm,
series, and because the medium is animation, they are basically have no limits of what
mhm.
they could do with the character. So I enjoy the animation films a lot. And I think like my favorites is the Batman ones and also the Justice League ones. Now the
Yeah.
ones that I've watched for Marvel, they're kind of hit and miss. Okay, now one thing I do like about animation, okay, especially the comic book characters, is because when they do an anime style, I love it.
Mhm.
If you notice, a lot of the Marvel properties they use the same company that did the Ninja Scroll series,
Yeah.
and the animation is just absolutely amazing. However, unfortunately, the story just did not match up. I
Mm.
wish they would have had the same animators from the Marvel animation for the DC ones,
Mm.
because the DC ones had the story, and do not get me wrong, the animation was great on them, but it was nowhere near to the level of the anime style that they used for Iron Man,
Yeah.
Wolverine, and so forth. They did a lot of them.
Yeah, but the DC one kind of harkens more back to the actual comic book feel, right? I mean, you should look at the original Batman anime series. I mean, I
Yes.
still love that. That's so excellent.
Yeah, it's still awesome. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but maybe it's just a different day and age, right? So maybe Marvel, I don't know. Maybe the anime one's just. I'm not sure why they decided to go in that direction, but I mean, if you enjoyed it, then.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the animation. I did not enjoy the story,
Hmm.
and I think since Marvel's doing such an amazing job everywhere else, they might develop the stories better for their animation,
Hmm.
their animation series. Because I think the animation, I love the anime style. I think that's already perfect.
Hmm.
I just want the same type of story and character development that they have in their other properties.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if they have that, it's hard to beat. But right now, at least in the animation world, I'm glad you brought that up. DC is on top,
Hmm.
and they do have series on the internet as well. Especially, I know this on a different tangent, but in anime, the Korean market, I forgot the name of it, but they have anime that they give freely, manga
Hmm.
online. I can't remember the exact phrase of it, but
Yeah.
that's huge in Korea, and maybe that might come over here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I know for anime subscription services, they at least have like Crunchyroll. I forgot the other one, but yeah.
yeah.
All right. So, and your preference is still the TV show over anything,
Yes.
however. Yeah.
Yes, my preference in order is TV show, and secondly the animation, which I'm glad you brought up. I forgot all about that, and then movies.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, it's internet series,
Mm.
animation, movies, and then the TV show. Because I feel like in a TV show they have to censor or sterilize a lot of things. Not censor, but it's for broadcast television.
Yeah, for,
So
for the greater general audience. Right?
yes, yes,
All right. So, pretty good discussion on the differences between the comic book mediums. Yeah. It's really interesting to see how it kind of evolves over time, right? Because first started with the comic books, and then it kind of really went
yeah,
to the movies and the animation series and the TV series, and I wonder what's going to be next. Whether they're going to kind of like cycle that over again, where comic books are going to become huge and then movies again, or we'll just see kind of
yeah.
like all four or however many mediums just kind of coexist together.
Yeah, and
Um,
now that we are in the technology age, I think that benefits companies like Marvel and DC,
mhm.
because they're able to expand their universe in so many different places.
I wonder
You
if they
know.
what if they had kind of like a episodic like video game, right? What would
Ooh,
you
that would be
Yeah,
awesome.
what would your take beyond that, right? So not only did you get to like partake in the action, but with episodic format, there's always like new villains, new stuff coming up. So maybe that'd be interesting to see if someone would ever do
Yeah,
that.
and they're already kind of doing that with DLCs. If you play the the DC fighting game,
Mhm.
I think they also have an MMO, but mainly the fighting games. You could download different
Well,
characters.
right, but I'm not. I'm talking more than that. I'm talking about like as a single player experience, like a story. Really
Oh yeah.
story driven narrative, right? Where like you know you have like one act where this villain's like kinda almost like the animation series, right? But more in a video game
Yep.
format.
You know what you made me think of?
Hmm.
It's a really classic game on the Sega Genesis, Comic Zone.
Hmm.
That was a living comic book, and it was drawn, and it was awesome. That I think would work nowadays even better.
Hmm.
You remember Comic Zone on the
Yeah.
Sega Genesis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. I
Yeah.
love that one.
Yeah, and the only game that I can really think that's doing like the true episodic format is there's a new Hitman game out right now. I'm not sure if you are familiar with Hitman.
Yeah.
But Hitman, basically, you're Agent 47. You're this contract
Hmm.
killer, and then basically each level is just kind of like its own universe, pretty much.
Hmm.
I mean, it's all realistic and grounded, but each level you're assassinating a different target in a different location, right? So you could be like in the mountains of like Prussia to like the
Hmm.
jungles in like South America to the bayou in Louisiana, right? And
Yeah.
so with this latest Hitman, they did a really experimental format where they didn't release the game at once. They're releasing kind of like each mission as it comes out. So
Oh wow, that's cool.
yeah, yeah, and I think they come out every couple months. So
Yeah.
I wonder if a format like that would really work for a comic book style game. But the only downside to that is I think it's hard to continuing garnering interest in it, right? Because a lot of
Yeah.
people really do just want to wait for the complete package to come out so they can just buy it at one time and just play it then.
Yeah, but I think the gaming community, they're used to that now. They don't get complete games. They get
Right.
DLCs and all this stuff. So I think they're used to it by now. And the Hitman approach, that would work better, I think. At least, or because Final Fantasy is going to do that too. Where they're re-releasing Final Fantasy VII, but it's going to be series based.
I mean that from that perspective, they know they can milk the franchise. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go with that one. But with the Hitman, I think part of it is that they didn't want to didn't have a complete product on day one, right? So here's their
Mhm.
compromise. We have the engine ready. We have pretty much the game working fine from a technical standard.
Sure.
And some people are even gonna probably question that, but yeah, they're just like, well, let's just release it now. Let's just release it as it goes on, and see how it really if it's profitable or if it's really viable to do it like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is gaming of the future, especially when people have like tools like we talked about previously, where there'll be a time when people can create their own video games without any programming knowledge.
Hmm.
And so if we get into an area where people are used to things being serialized or not ready or whatever, and if people have the tools to create video games without programming, I think that would be the next step in gaming. It
Mhm.
really would. Just think about Mario Maker, right? I mean, that is basically them creating their own game, kind of.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, it's just a bit of a tangent. Be interesting idea
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah. Too bad the Hitman movies are so horrible.
Yeah, but the games are actually pretty excellent. I've been wanting to pick up the latest one, but I'm on that side of the fence where I just want to wait for the complete package to come out.
Sure.
Maybe it's just because I just can't see myself checking out like the new content every month. I think I'm more of a just sit down and kind of just like power through it like in a couple of sittings rather than
Yeah.
play a
I
little
mean,
bit.
and speaking of that, that's why I love the old games. The games were ready; they were complete.
Mm.
I have the cartridge or the CD. I got the whole game.
Mhm.
I don't. That's why I'm not. That's one of the big reasons why I'm not a huge fan of modern games, is because you get an incomplete game.
I mean, I think that's for a different practice because they're trying to. People are willing to still buy the DLC, and people are voting with their wallets, right? They're like, we
That's
don't.
true.
Yeah, we can complain about all we want, but they're not doing anything to help the problem because they're still buying these games, they're still buying
That's
the
right.
DLCs. So I mean, we may have like one opinion about it, but our money is saying otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why I do not play modern games, because I don't like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and not every developer is like that. I mean, there's a few bad ones
No.
out there. Like I would say EA is probably one of the biggest vendors.
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft, they're more about the re-release schedule, so they release a new Assassin's Creed or Far Cry game every year. But I believe
Yep.
this year they're like, we're gonna try taking a year off, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah, fix your games first. Make sure you don't have pieces of their
Yeah.
face missing.
But I guess like going pretty quickly into gaming, I recently finished a new Doom, the 2016 Doom, and that was an excellent game.
Oh, that looked awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not only from like a technical perspective, because that game looked amazing, and if you have an AMD card, it actually runs super well because of the Vulkan API.
Yeah, brand new
Um,
API.
Yeah, yeah, and you know when people are excited about DX12 and Vulkan, and a lot of people in the camp are saying yes, NVIDIA is like outperforming right now in like the DX11 category.
Hmm.
But from an API driver's perspective, AMD is more of like it ages as it grows, right? It's like fine
Yeah.
wine. But yeah, anyway, so that game was great, and it's everything that the original Doom pretty much was, just straight up action. No story,
Yeah.
no BS. It's just like run and gun and like just extremely satisfying combat. It didn't try like any stealth sections. It didn't try to be anything it wasn't. It's just here's a lot of violence, here's a lot of guns, here's a lot of demons, and just like go wild with it. So.
And I mean, I'm from that age where I remember the first Wolfenstein, the first Doom, and those were so fun.
Yeah.
That's what it was about. You didn't have to worry about story, character development, whatever. I just want to blow up demons,
Mm-hmm.
and not die.
Mhm.
And I think we're kind of returning to that because after Doom, Shadow Warriors, the sequel was coming out, and that looked awesome.
Yeah.
I love Shadow Warriors.
Yeah, and even going back to your Wolfenstein, the new Wolfenstein games, the man, I forgot what it's called, but the two recent Wolfenstein games. So one was like the main kind of re-envisioning of it, and then the second one was kind of like an expansion to it. But they're
Yeah.
both excellent, and like you said, but the thing that surprised me most about it is like the story was actually really really good in the Wolfenstein game.
Yeah,
believe it
I
or
haven't
not.
played it.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of good things though, because it's like, does it have time travel elements in it?
Not necessarily time travel elements. So like speaking from a gameplay perspective, Doom and Wolfenstein can be very different. Wolfenstein's a lot more slower paced. You have aim
Yeah.
down sights. You have a lot more cover. It's a lot more. You got to really think about the fight when you go into it. For Doom, it's literally how fast can you dodge something. How quick are you reflex.
Yeah.
It's a reflex shooter, right?
You're right. Yeah.
But Wolfenstein, yeah, it is another great game, and I love that. And I'm not sure which one I like more, like the new Wolfenstein or the new Doom. But the thing that surprised me most about Wolfenstein was that it actually had really good character development and storyline, and the pacing
Yes, it
was
did.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just wouldn't expect that from, if you ever played any original Wolfenstein games, it's just like you're BJ Blacklist, you're just a guy trying to kill as many Nazis as possible.
Yep.
And you're still the same guy trying to kill as many Nazis as possible, but he gets a lot more complex and like well-rounded. He's like a really soft-spoken, carry a big stick, but speak silently type of guy, and yeah, great games.
Yeah, I
So-
heard a lot of great things about the most recent Wolfenstein.
Yeah. So I feel like Bethesda and just killing it right now. The FPS is. I'm just really excited to see what they come out with next because I love a good story-driven FPS game.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, the story serves the game. All the technical stuff just helps it.
Yeah. And there's choices, right? Because like you just want to just run and gun, play Doom. You want to have more of a story, like slower pace, to play Wolfenstein. And I'm glad that these choices out here, and they don't have to make these compromises of trying to be both. One excels really
Yeah.
well in one area, the other one excels super well in the other area.
And one thing that was interesting to me, at least from a technical standpoint, when I saw Doom 4, Doom 4, was the fact that they optimized it really well even for lower end hardware. It still looked good.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
I saw the comparisons between the DX12 versus Vulkan, and Vulkan performed extremely well. I think it
Yes.
beat it out in some other
No,
games.
definitely. Before they released the Vulkan patch, and I think that's what really convinced me to buy Doom is when the Vulkan patch came out because I have a Fury X, which is the AMD card. Yeah, DX11, and I'm running it like at the resolution 3000, 3440 by 1440, which is like the ultra wide one. Yeah, and DX11, I was getting close to like 40 to 60. As soon as I switched to Vulkan, it jumped to like 70 to 80. That's a
Wow.
solid 30 frame at that resolution increase, and it's just like, wow.
And
This thing is
was there any performance bottlenecks
nope.
with that? Oh, okay.
No,
Wow.
no, it's just the drivers itself, and you see the power of DX12 Vulkan when it comes to the AMD card. Just the fact that you get 30 frames per second just by switching the API, and
That is huge.
it's huge, yeah, and it's making me excited for other, you know, DX12 Vulkan games coming out in the future. There's not a lot yet, but at least it makes me feel a little better about purchasing the card that I did.
Yeah, and you are running it at like a pretty
Yeah.
really high resolution.
Yeah, and it's all ultra settings too. Everything
Wow.
max, everything cranked up, and yeah, it's just a beautiful game.
Man, I want to play it. I'm gonna have to get me a more. Well, we can
Yeah.
talk about later about that.
You can play it when you come visit.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyways, we got a little bit off tangent there, so let's bring it back, and I think the next topic we want to talk about is Google's upcoming event. So
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Now, if I recall, I think it is on October 4th. I'm not checking it right now, but I think it is. And basically, the two big pieces of news was number one, they're going to announce some new phones, and then number two, they're going to announce a new version of Android/Chrome OS. Now, what's really interesting about this is that first are the phones. Okay, the phones. They've already seen screenshots of them, and basically, it's going to be an HTC phones, two of them, and also they're basically killing the Nexus line. They're now going to be called Google Pixel. Very very similar to the branding on their Pixel tablet. And from the screenshots I saw, it looks a lot like an iPhone.
Can you give a quick rundown of why Google switches up phone manufacturers every so often, maybe for the people who don't know?
Yeah, when Google started their Nexus line, what they wanted to do was showcase Android with their hardware partners. And the very first Android phone was made by HTC, the very first one. It was the flip one. It's the Danger. It's called the HTC Danger at the time. But also the very first Nexus phone was made by HTC as well. Now, since then, manufacturers like LG have made Nexus phone. Huawei have made Nexus phones. I don't think Samsung made a Nexus phone.
No, Samsung didn't make one. And Google had owned Motorola at one point. But
Motorola made a Nexus phone as well.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, it's always a scary thing when you're a manufacturer, because Google, and even from the beginning when Android was first released in 1995, Google released Android and they bought that out from the company Danger, who made the original HTC phone, right? It's always the belief that open source it, get as many hardware partners as possible, so that you could get Android to distribute it and have that mass market, which they do now, definitely. Then do like an Apple. Now you're becoming their competitor. Release your own line of phone, and Google will control everything. So it's a vertical stack. You control the hardware, control the software, the ecosystem, application stack,
services,
services, everything. And now you can undercut your competitors too. And so that was the whole thought, and I still think it's going to be that in the end, in one way or another. Okay, maybe they're not going to wipe out their manufacturers, but they are basically a monopoly if you think about it. As much as you could love, your Apple phone, you could love your Windows phone, which I don't think anybody does. But the fact of the matter is, there's over 1 billion Android devices, and that's only the ones that are activated. That doesn't include things like your USB sticks that have Android on it, or maybe your tablets. Maybe Android is just everywhere. And that is a very, very smart business strategy from Google. Now, going back to this event, for the two phones, one, I'm just going by what I've read and seen so far. We'll know in a few days. But basically, one's going to be like a 5-inch phone, which is basically an everyday phone, and then one's going to be more like a phablet class, probably a 5.5 inch. And I do like the Nexus phones, I really do. But the only thing I don't like about them are two things, really. One, no micro SD card slot. I really, really hate that. I hate the not having that expansion. And Google's whole premise for it, and it makes sense, but it really doesn't, is that when you have everything internal, you could get faster read rates, and also there's a security issue when you have external storage. Now, the last release of Android, or the one before that, Lollipop, I think, no, Marshmallow, I'm sorry, it did allow you to turn your micro SD storage into one singular storage. That did kind of fix the security thing. But the problem is you can only use that SD card for that phone, you know, because of the way it worked. And so, and the second thing that I didn't like about the Nexus phones is, once again, it's very similar to the whole expansion thing. It didn't have removable batteries, you know, give you that option, you know. And so those are the things that I didn't like about it. But everything else, I really liked it. I mean, I really liked the Nexus phones. You got updates pretty much immediately. The performance was great, you know. And so those things I really do like, you know. I hate the fact that I'm tied to a phone telecom company or waiting for the manufacturer to update their software. But until they release not even a Nexus phone, a Pixel phone that has micro SD card slot and the option to have a battery removal, I'm not going to go towards their brand, you know. So
I'm not sure if they would even, you know, revert on that, right?
I don't think so. Maybe they will, but you know, it makes more business sense for them to have control of that, just like Apple. You know, I'll say what you will about Apple, and I've said this many times, but Apple is just brilliant in marketing, you know, and they're also brilliant in the control that they have. Like, for example, if you want to make an Apple accessory, you have to pay up, you know, and you have to play by their rules. You have to follow their standards. Apple purposely doesn't do things that are universal. You know, think about their Lightning port. That's not universal. They don't have a micro SD card slot. You can't do micro USB. Even when I was copying Apple iPhone movie files, they were incompatible with my player. You know, so they're very smart in that sense, and they still have a very large market share. So besides the two Pixel phones, there's also, very important, the new version of Android, or Chrome. They've been talking about this for years, where they're going to merge Chrome and Android together, and this one's going to be codenamed Andromeda. So, or Andromeda, I don't know how you actually say it, but that is, to me, that is more interesting than hardware itself. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, like, in terms of the software and hardware that you know,
so,
from your perspective?
I actually haven't heard anything about that. So, I mean, I haven't used Chrome OS a lot, but what would be the benefits of merging it together? Is it just like the support for the apps, or what? Like,
well,
is it universe, like, so now is it like this operating system going to be on phones, it's going to be on, you know, laptops soon enough for Chromebooks or whatever?
Yeah, I think this was whole part of their plan, and all the companies are doing this anyway. You know, if you see Apple software or Windows software, going from Windows desktop or Mac desktop to the phone, especially Windows, there's not a lot of difference. You know what I mean? And that's by design. And Apple, if you use their Mac operating system on their desktop, they're integrating more of the iOS look and feel as well, you know, with the app stores and so
I hear that's turning some people off to it too.
Sure, but it makes more sense, you know, because you do design, right? It makes more sense for you to have one consistent design. It's easier for you to manage, and at the same time, you have more control, you know?
For the average user, right?
Yes, for the average user, not for the real tech-heavy one. I think for people who are geeks and nerds, we love to have control over our system, you know, from the hardware all the way down to the software, you know, but for most people, they don't want all that. You know, the more choices that they have, the more complexity, the less likely they're going to use it.
I think it also sates our curiosity in some aspects too, because I like having a bunch of different devices where I could learn and, you know, play around with and figure out and kind of see like what are the pros and cons between the 2 or 3 different things that I'm using, right? So I like having, and not only that, but for me, just having a different experience, you know, so I don't get tired of the same experience across every device. That's what I like about it. But it does make a lot of sense for the general consumer for everything to just look and feel the same, right? Because it's more intuitive, spend less time trying to figure out, I guess just kind of it's more accessible and easier to use, really.
Yeah, and then also if you think about it from a business standpoint, Chrome OS, their market share was less than 3%. Maybe, less than 3%, even if you include the education sector as well, which is pretty large. And if you look at Android's market share, it's like 90%, probably more than that if you talk about strictly OS. So from a business standpoint, it made more sense for them to merge Chrome OS with Android versus the other way around. And also, if you think about, once again, a business standpoint, if you are developing the software, you would save a lot more time and money if you only had to worry about one version and not so many forks of different versions.
Exactly, yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense. So some of the early screenshots or rumors of this new version, it doesn't look dramatically different from Android. You know, the only thing is the app jar, it's no longer an icon you have to swipe up or something. But, you know, until we actually see where it is, you know, how it works, I'm not really sure. And I think, to be honest with you, it won't really make a big difference on their mobile devices. I think where it's going to be a big difference is when you have it on bigger screens like a laptop or TV and so forth. As you know, there's also Android TV as well. And so if they could make Android and Chrome OS Andromeda work, then they could have one platform and apply that to Android TV as well. You know, it is just scale intelligently.
Not even just TV, but like the whole, well, once the internet thing starts to become more prevalent, right?
Sure.
Everywhere. So who's this going to affect then? I mean, probably initially it's only going to be available on these new Pixel phones, right? But
that's right.
Is it going to start proliferating out to existing devices, or is it going to be a go forward kind of thing where everything going forward is going to have this new operating system?
Well, I think it'll be very similar to how Android works right now. As you know, since Android is on so many different platforms, so many different manufacturers, they do not have control of it like Apple does. So unfortunately, your new devices are going to have it, just like it is now. Your Nexus or your Pixel phones are definitely going to have it, but everybody else depends on the manufacturer and the carrier, right? So, but more than likely, most definitely, they're going to make this the version going forward.
Yeah,
you know,
and maybe you even convince some people to do some upgrading, right? She wants the newest version and get our next phone. So
exactly,
it's probably not going to come out to existing devices. So
yeah, and like from your standpoint, since you are a developer, can you like kind of explain to maybe the audience, the ones that are not aware, how difficult it is to manage versions of software, especially across so many different devices?
Yeah, so being a web developer, the great thing about that is you can write once and deploy everywhere, right? So for example, if I make a website, it's going to work in my desktop, in my phone, whatever. I like more of the hybrid app approach where, like I said, you write once and it just works everywhere, right? So, I mean, between like deploying different types to different phones, you know, if I was going to write one for iOS and I had to write it in a different language, right? Android's a different language, Windows is going to be a different language. The biggest difference there is that you do get the native performance though, right? So once you write it in like that specific, you know, for a specific platform, you get the most performance out of it. But then it's like the trade-off in other places because, well, now you get to write, like, kind of start from scratch, you know, on a different platform. So the fact that, you know, if this could possibly be happening where we see the merger between the mobile and desktop, and if I can only write one application, it's going to work in, you know, from like a desktop perspective to a phone perspective, it's going to save a ton of time. And that's coming from like the efforts of a single developer, right? So it's definitely going to help out a lot of these smaller developers. You know, if you're like a firm or a company, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference right now. But I mean, definitely it's just going to make it more easy, more accessible, which is the way that development has always been going in, right? Anyone can get into it. You can learn so much on the internet for free. And yeah, it's just, we're going to see more and more stuff coming out. So I don't know if it'll make a huge difference right now, but more from, I guess, just getting into the game and learning, I think it'll make a huge difference.
So let me ask you this. You have developed Android apps before.
Right.
So you're familiar with how the platform works and how the programming works.
Yeah.
So how easy is it to modify the Android version for each different device? I mean, how easy is it to do? Is it modularized, or how does that work?
It's not necessarily the easiest thing to do because, you know, so, and that may be the one problem with Android is that there's so many different devices out there. It's kind of hard to, you know, optimize your app for all of those, right? Especially when you're, like me, a single developer, and I don't have access to all these phones, right? I don't have like 10, 15 phones I can test directly on. So it is harder in that aspect because maybe you run into a bug that's, you know, showing up on this phone but not showing up on that phone.
Yeah.
And I haven't done development on that level yet, so I can't really comment on that, but I've I'm gonna go ahead and say it's already a pain, and you can even see this in the Apple side too, right? Because you have the different versions of the iPhones, you have all the different iPads too, and even then, you can have an emulator, so you can test it on your desktop or developing it, but it's not always going to be the most accurate, right? Until you actually test it on the actual hardware platform. But yeah, as you say, as they keep on unifying these things, the gap should start to close, right? Or should start to narrow in terms of compatibility, and so that does, make a huge difference. So
Yeah, that'd be a good thing. And also, hopefully it'll help Android release versions, updates, be available outside of the Pixel phone. I know it's still the carrier and the manufacturers that are involved, but if it is unified, it might make it easier for them to push out new versions, because that's one of the big problems that I have with all the phones that we buy from our carriers. Unless it's from the manufacturer and unlocked, you're kind of screwed, unless you want to flash your phone.
yeah.
And a lot of people aren't going to do that. Even myself, I don't want to break my phone, which I have done before.
I feel like even in this day and age, you don't really need to flash it because your phone already does everything you need to do. Back in the day, flashing was a huge, I would say, improvement to a lot of phones just because of the stock images being really crappy. But this was back in a time where hardware was the bottleneck, right? And that's no longer the issue. So, yeah, I mean, my first phone I flashed and it felt like a brand new phone. It was much better battery life, much faster. A lot of cool things, a lot of cool customization, but the past two phones I've had, I didn't flash at all, just because it did everything I needed to do, right? And I don't really need any more of that. So it's so cool if you just want to if you're a tinkerer and you like to hack around and things like that. It's definitely a great thing to do, but it's just not necessary anymore. We're not trying to squeeze out as much as you can because the phone is already more than capable.
Yeah, and it does take time. You have to spend the time to actually do it. And if you do brick your phone, your no warranty is going to cover that.
Yeah, yeah. So you do got to be careful. But a lot of them, pretty easy to follow for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So it seems just like the software it's starting to mature a lot quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes out. And I've always been a big proponent of software over hardware. So I'm really interested to see what Google does.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So we'll be waiting for that event, and then we'll probably have another few more discussions after the event passes, so we can see everything that maybe we predicted or maybe we didn't predict. Maybe we're completely wrong.
Right. You're right. That's what I love about tech. We know a lot of stuff through the internet, but it's always nice to have surprises.
Yeah. So we just wait for that event, and we can revisit that in a later episode.
Yeah.
Okay. So next topic. I don't know if you heard, but Amazon does own Twitch TV, and recently they did a new promotion where if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can actually link it to your Twitch TV account, which gives you, I think, a free sub every month, a free indie game, and a few other, or ad-free viewing as well. And basically it's just giving you all the premium features for an account that you already own. So,
wow.
Yeah, if you do use Twitch TV, go ahead and link that up because if you already have your Prime account, there's no reason not to. But I think the more important news coming from that is that I believe Twitch TV is now in beta to allow users to upload their own videos. So before, if you didn't know, Twitch TV was primarily streaming. So you live stream it, and then it would save a VOD of it later, so you can go back and watch. But now, in the beta, you have the ability to upload your own videos, a la YouTube or Vimeo or whatever other video content service that you want to use. So what are your takes on this? Do you think it's a good strategy in terms of seeing Google's recent announcements with the YouTube Hero and all the different policy changes they're making? Do you think it's the right time for Twitch TV to really step in and try to take a piece of that pie?
Yeah, and I think it's all business driven. Because you remember when YouTube Gaming came out, right? Nobody really remembered that, but it was in response to Twitch. And now Twitch or Amazon, really, everybody wants to get into the video space because as I've mentioned before, that's where everything's heading, period. You know, and so YouTube is the big dog. And so, you know, we have Periscope, Facebook video. I don't even want to consider Vimeo and Dailymotion in there because they're really not even competitors. We got Instagram video as well. And so Amazon, they are, I think them and Facebook, I think more Amazon because Amazon is in so many different areas, right? And so I think with Twitch, they are more positioned, and they do have Amazon Direct Video as well, which is going to be potentially a competitor to YouTube. But Twitch is really where it's at. So if Amazon integrates this and allows the upload features a la YouTube, then they are in a much better competitive strength. And unlike Google, Amazon has all their commerce features, you know, Amazon.com. I mean, they have their Kindle platform, they have their Audible platform. Amazon has their hands in a lot of places. And so to me, from a business end, this makes sense. I don't think this has anything to do with the technical aspect, you know, it's really not. It's all business related. And I think timing wise, it makes a lot of sense because people still do Twitch. A lot of people do. Mm-hmm. And more video, specifically live video, that is going to be the standard in the future, especially when we have higher bandwidths and the quality is going to get better. And so they are anticipating that, and so is YouTube, you know. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I actually welcome it. You know, I think we do need more competition in this space, mm-hmm. because if you do create content, and I'm always under the belief that you should not depend on platforms. You should use the platforms. And so if right now for video, if you are only on YouTube, which is basically the only place you can go, and you don't have anything else, you are basically under the control of Google, okay? Mm-hmm. And so it's nice if they have another competitor that does offer you a lot of value, a lot of services, and a lot of people use Amazon Prime, and that is definitely a mission of Amazon. They want to be profitable. They're still not as profitable as they could be, you know, despite their market cap. Mm-hmm. And so I can't wait for it to come out. I don't use Twitch myself. I mean, I don't do any type of live stream gaming or whatever.
Yeah, so I want to talk about like the different cultures of these video services, right? So, you know, Twitch is primarily gaming. You could argue that Vimeo is more of like the artistic, creative side of videos, right? And just kind of like, you know, what each service like is almost their own niche, except for YouTube, which kind of encompasses everything.
Sure.
But I mean, even if you know, we've seen YouTube trying to get their hands into the gaming space, you know, after seeing the success with Twitch, right?
Yep.
Do you think Twitch is ever going to be more than just gaming, or do you think they'd be perfectly fine with just, you know, primarily just gaming related content?
Definitely more than gaming. That's why Amazon bought them. You know.
Right. I mean, for the, you know, immediate future, just to have like all like the infrastructure in, you know, place, right? So now that they've purchased Twitch, they can now support their, I don't know, their vision for having their video content service, right?
That's correct. And the reason they bought Twitch once again is because of a business idea. I mean, the business part of it, because Twitch has the branding. I think second to YouTube, they're the most popular video site. I mean, even though it's all gaming, they're still the most popular video site. You know, I mean, that's without question. However, Twitch is also in a category, gaming, which will bring in other people. So a lot of people who do game, they do spend a lot of time on YouTube as well. And so it would be a natural progression whenever they do expand to many other things. And with everything that is been going on with YouTube in terms of policy changes to the platform and so forth, I think giving people, content creators, another option, they would feel more comfortable in going to Twitch a la Amazon, even though people don't think of Amazon when they think of Twitch. So, you know, and Amazon is a really powerful brand. So, I mean, I'm gonna upload videos on there as well, you know, so yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of sense. And like I said, I welcome the competition.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's even capturing like a hard demographic too, right? So I would kind of associate Twitch with the younger generation. So, you know, maybe anywhere from the ages of like 8 to, you know, 25, 26, 27, or, you know, kind of that range.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see how they grow up or like how they age with the services, right? So maybe like it's gonna be more of a shift, and more people are gonna be familiar with Twitch rather than YouTube later down the line or something like that.
Yeah, well, actually, I think once again, I'm keep thinking of from the business aspect, right? Everybody knows Amazon, regardless if you are a gamer, or you're a housewife, you are a business person, it doesn't matter. And so this is smart. They're using Twitch not only to bring in gamers, but it's also a test bed for their videos. So what they really want to do, eventually they're going to integrate all those services, and it'll just be Amazon Video, whatever they call it, or it's Amazon Direct Video. So guess what? You're buying something on Amazon.com, they can send you advertisements for their video platform. And now, all these people using Amazon services right now they have the ability to upload videos. So there's your whole YouTube market.
Yeah.
They already have every demographic on Amazon. Very smart, very smart. So they don't have to build up. They already have a base right there. And so I think Twitch is also a test bed as well. So
what would happen? Or let's visit some other areas that Amazon has their hands in that maybe didn't do as well as they expected it to, right? So maybe like their Fire phones, or even more of like their approach to Internet of Things with, was it the Amazon Alexis, right? Or
yeah, Alexa, yeah. And Echo.
Right. So I mean, what is your general consensus on those? Do you think those fail? They have a place in the market, or?
Well, I mean, as with any company, they're testing. So the Fire phones were a complete failure, but the Fire tablets are very successful. Okay, the Kindle tablets are very successful. And in terms of the Echo, I don't think the Alexa did as well, but I think Echo it's not doing bad. And so like I said, that's where Amazon has a competitive advantage, if I were to think, because they do have their hands in so many areas. I mean, they have their commerce, Amazon.com, but they have their publishing brand, which is Kindle, but they also have their print publishing, which is CreateSpace, and they also have their audiobook, which is Audible. They also have their video segment, which is Twitch TV, and they also have their web services. They have Amazon web services as well for companies and businesses who want to use their servers. And so Amazon is in a lot of areas. And if you think about also the software end as well, the Amazon Fire tablets, they have their own version of Android, which they've modified. And so they are in a lot of places. So I really think that Amazon is poised to really take a huge step forward. They're constantly developing stuff. And not only is it like from, the whole structure of having different segments, but also testing hardware, right? So they are already producing Fire tablets and Echoes and Alexas. And I don't want to include Fire phones because they didn't sell well at all. Yeah. But guess what? Now they are a hardware manufacturer as well. So they have every gamut that you can think of. And so all the companies are trying to do that. They want to be in the software. They want to be in the services. They want to be in the hardware. They want to get into media. Remember, the Android Fire Sticks, those do well. It didn't sell well as just like the Chrome sticks and the Apple TV. They want to get into your television as well. They're a media company as well. And also, let's not forget Amazon Prime, competitor to Netflix. They produce their own content. So that is a huge area, with media and television and so forth. So they're everywhere. You got to give it to Jeff Bezos and his company and his teams. They're really doing some amazing stuff.
And even if Twitch TV were not to take a huge segment off of YouTube, like let's just say it falls a little short of what they expected it to, right? I don't think it really damaged the brand or reputation at all, right? Because it's still going to be Twitch TV, and it's still going to be the top dog of streaming, at least streaming gaming. So yeah, I feel like it's a pretty safe move. Let
me ask you this, since I don't do anything on Twitch, why is it so popular? What attracts people to it? Because there's a lot of streaming services.
Yeah, in the same vein as YouTube, it's basically people love the personalities and of the content being created, right? And it's just that they're only available on Twitch, right, and not anywhere else.
Now, do they have to have a clause where they can't stream anywhere else, or how does that work?
Maybe, but I mean, just for now, just the fact that Twitch is going to be like the most easily accessible, and that's where you're going to get the most viewers, right? So as a streamer, when you're trying to monetize things, that's like the hugest audience for live streaming, for gaming streaming, right? it's always going to be Twitch. Yeah, I think it just has some momentum right now. Ever since it was kind of like, ever since the era of like live streaming started coming, which was like before it was like Own 3D TV and Justin TV. Actually, Justin
Yes.
TV turned to Twitch, right? Own
Yeah.
3D, they went under. Um,
And Justin is one of the co-founders of Twitch.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right. And so yeah, I think it's just they've had the market from the very beginning, and it's just
Mhm.
not changing. Yeah, just because it's the culture. I think for like the average viewer. So I don't know if you know, but Twitch TV is like huge meme culture where people are just like having fun and just kind of saying really
Mhm.
dumb stuff. But it's kind of like encouraged too by the streamers, right? And it's just a place where everyone can kind of hang out, and not only do you get to interact with your favorite streamer, right? Like you can ask them questions, you could request songs, you could
Mhm.
donate and things like that. But you also have a place to hang out with a lot of people who are similar minded.
And one thing that I wanted to talk about with Twitch TV
Mhm.
is something you mentioned earlier is YouTube policy changes, right?
Mhm.
And so just recently, a very big, or as far as I know, a big person from Twitch got banned from Twitch.
Mhm.
Her name is Zoe Berger. She is a bikini gamer, and then she moved over to YouTube right now, and she gained like 400,000 subscribers in less than a month.
Mhm.
And from what I understand, Twitch TV is even more strict on their policies than YouTube is.
It depends on, I think, the subject of the policy. So a while back, they had a few different, at least for live streaming, because you have such a huge audience. A lot of kids are going to be watching it too, right? So from a moral perspective,
Mhm.
they're like no heavy drinking, always need a shirt on, right? Kind of just making it a little more PG-13. You can still curse as much as you want.
Mhm.
But in that fact, it's just taking a moral high ground, really. Um,
And
then-
they want to get advertisers. They don't want
Yeah.
to get sued neither.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think the only other policy change that's been kind of strict in the past was the music.
Copyright.
Yeah. So content ID, right? So I think during the stream, and I know this is a huge change just because like the monetization efforts. But I think on VODs, on these saved videos, it'll actually mute out if it does ID some licensed music. But that's kind of every service, right? I mean, YouTube has its own caveats with that, and like
Sure.
it's just like the way the industry is, right? You can't really get around those things because I mean, if YouTube and Twitch can't get around it, I'm not sure if like some new player entering the
Yeah.
game is gonna get around it either,
Yeah,
right?
they will get sued. It's
Exactly.
all a business thing. They will
Yeah.
get sued. Now, one thing that I noticed, and like I said, I don't do any of the live streaming or gaming culture, so I don't really understand it. Well, what I noticed specifically with this Zoe Berger incident, right? Or not incident, whatever happened recently, it became big news on YouTube.
Mhm.
But one of the things that I noticed on Twitch TV and live streaming, maybe it's new for YouTube, but not new for Twitch TV, are like sexy gamers. There's going to be a whole new genre of monetization and popularity.
I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's not even a new thing, right? So the
Mhm.
term, like the quote is like it's a boob stream, right?
Yeah.
And basically, you just it's nothing new, and it's been around on Twitch for ages, right?
But it's
only-
new to YouTube Live, though.
It is new to YouTube Live, but very recently it's just Twitch is like, all right, we don't want any of that kind of stuff,
Wow.
streaming. So it makes sense. And there's a pretty big controversy a while back on like, because there are some still like famous streamers on Twitch who do that who may have larger assets, and they're not necessarily like streaming shirtless or anything, but they're definitely like flaunting it and showing it off, right? Because they know they can use that to their advantage to get these younger even younger children, just people donating, right?
Yeah,
So-
and I want to ask about that because they do allow donations, and even if it's $1 or $2, if you have a big audience, you could make thousands of dollars in a single day.
Oh,
and you're very attractive and you have the right assets.
Exactly, right? And you don't even have to be good at the game. At that point, it's
Yeah,
all just
yeah,
like it's all like a vanity thing, and they know it, and they're working it, purposely. They can play dumb as much as they want to, but they know exactly what they're doing, right?
So what are your thoughts on that, though? I mean, you talk about the moral thing.
Yeah, so it's definitely different since I'm a little bit older and that doesn't really appeal to me.
Hmm.
I have a girlfriend and everything, but
Hmm.
it does make sense to a lot of these people who don't really connect with someone on that level, right? And so maybe they just feel like this special connection, like, oh, I get to talk to my favorite girl, and I get to support her, and she like cares for me, and they have like this a one-sided relationship, and that's what I would say, because it is the internet,
Hmm.
like you can any kid can go to, well, pretty much any kid can go to just like any porn site, right, and just get it from there. But I think this
Hmm.
interaction is different, and it's feeling like maybe a void, not necessarily a void, but it's feeling something, make them feel a little fulfilled in their life in regards to having kind of a female companion.
Hmm.
So yeah, but these streamers, they know exactly what they're doing, and I'm not gonna say for all streamers. They there'll be some girl streamers who actually want to play the game, right? Or
Sure.
yeah, they know they look good, but they're not trying to show off everything. Maybe they're more of like the cutesy personality type, right? But then there are some who like specifically have like Pornhub type fonts, and they're just really like playing it.
Yeah. I mean, my personal feeling is good for them. I mean, and I don't, I mean,
Yeah,
just separating the moral, psychological aspects,
it's a hustle,
that
right?
makes, it's 1,000% business. I mean, and think about it. If you can stream for 2, 3 hours and make $45,000 from that stream, even after you pay Twitch their percentage,
You'd be almost dumb not to do that.
yeah, you'd be
Yeah,
dumb. I mean, absolutely dumb. You could make more in 1 week than you would in multiple years. And so,
exactly.
especially, not to be sexist, but
Yep.
when a woman is younger and they're attractive, they're going to get more attention. And why not use that? Okay. And from the few streams that I've seen, because Twitch does have rules, as does YouTube, they're not doing anything expletive. And actually I see more nudity in broadcast TV
Hmm.
than I do on Twitch, because you can't have nudity there, not on purpose. They will ban you. And so kids, especially young boys, they're always going to be young boys, so I don't think that's going to change,
I think,
so
yeah, I think from Twitches, it's more about setting a precedent, right? Because like the more they leave their platform open to that kind of things, maybe like the more and more, like what if that like happens to overtake like all the most popular streamers, right? What if like these boob streams became like the number one type of content on Twitch, and I think that's something they just want to avoid, right? So maybe just like close that off to that and just saying, hey, we don't
yeah.
want this, we don't want it to gain any traction or anything like that, it. Yeah, so I don't think they have a problem with just like a few people doing it, but maybe it's just about setting the precedent, setting the standard. Like, hey, we're not really too keen on this, and we don't want this to be like, you know, maybe like the second largest thing in Twitch or third largest, thing in Twitch or whatever.
Well, that's very similar to what's happening in YouTube, and it's always been happening.
Mhm.
It's always a business aspect, okay? Because at the end of the day, you want advertisers and companies that you can work with and have relationships with, right?
Mhm.
And let's not beat around the bush. Sex sells,
Mhm.
no matter what medium that you are in, okay? However, they got to be careful with that, because if they're known for very explicit things, a lot of drama, as it is in YouTube, and they're doing that not for the content creators or for any moral view. They're doing that because they need to get these relationships with these businesses.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, all of these internet companies, technology companies, want to get into the media space, you know, and they want to be the next TV.
Mhm.
And you need big companies with advertising money to get
Exactly.
them in there.
Yeah.
And so they're doing that now in preparation for later, because these broadcasts, even cable, I mean, a lot of it are part of big conglomerates,
Mhm.
and it's not hard to think that Google, Amazon, all of them, like Google has Google Fiber, right? Why do they have that? Well, so then they can become a telecom, become a media company. So this is all part of their overall strategy. So all of these things, in my opinion, all the policy changes, everything, it has nothing to do with moral and ethics. It has everything to do with business, just period. Because if they could get away with having 1 billion views off of a boob streamer and not get sued, they would do it.
Mhm.
They would do it because it makes business sense. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I did watch the Zoe Berger live stream on YouTube.
Mhm.
I mean, it wasn't live, but I watched it pre-recorded, and it's nothing different than you watching TV. It's and there's That's, I mean, that's what I don't get. There's more violence, sex, and so forth on broadcast TV with kids watching than there is on the internet. So it's, well, at least on the sites that we're watching. And so it'll be interesting to see where that goes, because with this Twitch bikini gamer or whatever boob gamer coming over to YouTube, obviously there's going to be a lot of copycats. And so I think we might see a huge surge of those type of gamers in the short term. But, you know, just like what Twitch is doing, it's not going to last long.
I think the difference is that Twitch has legs, whereas YouTube maybe not so much. Because even people who, like, you know, would jump over to YouTube, I don't think they're going to stay there for long. Like you said, it's going to be like probably a popular, like a huge resurgence at the very beginning, but I think towards the end a lot of these people are just going to go back to Twitch because, you know, one of the reasons why people love their favorite streamers on Twitch is because like they can tune in every single day and there's something always like kind of new going on, or they're always making like, you know, new jokes or something, right? But I guess like to me, you could tune into like one of these bikini streamers for like maybe 5-10 minutes, but at that point they're not offering too much, you know, nothing new, at least in my perspective, right? So like you've seen it once, it's gonna be the same.
Yep. I agree with you. You know,
and
there's only so much shaking that you can see. And
at least like these other people who are streaming, they're, you know, genuinely funny, hilarious. They're actually good at the game too. They can be good at the game, but they provide a different kind of entertainment that's a lot, you know, just it lasts longer, right? So
yeah, I get it. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I have watched just very few live streams, and I've only seen like I think maybe 2 gaming streams ever, and to me I think it's a lot of work,
man.
I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean I can't imagine doing a stream daily for, usually it's like 2 hours, hour to 2 hours. That's a lot of time, you know.
Yeah.
But that phrase is old, by the way.
Oh wow, you're saying
yeah.
that?
So yeah, I'm saying that. So yeah, so I don't see how people do that for a living. I think it's a lot of work, I think, you know, to stream. And I've seen some streamers that go for hours, right?
Nah, it's more than that. It's like they're streaming 10 hours a day. But the thing is that, you know, I think these streamers are also very smart business people because they're building their brand, right? And in order to keep your brand alive, especially with Twitch, I think you just have to stream almost every day in order to stay relevant. Because I think once you're relevant, it's like once, you know, if you're gone for like a month or something, then I think people just like, you know, the chance of someone returning to your stream is going to be very, very low. So in order to keep their brand alive, it's very like, you know, it's very tight.
You know, well, one of the things that has been happening with YouTube, you know, there's a lot of metrics in YouTube that metrics uses to push up your videos and to recommend your videos. And the number one metric is view time, which means that you have to produce content more regularly. You just can't do once a week or once a month anymore. But with Twitch TV, you're telling me people basically have to stream live every single day.
At least 5-6 days out of the week.
Wow.
I've seen a lot of streamers come and go. And at least for like, you know, some of these, like for example, the League of Legends streams, which are probably the ones I follow the most, you know, there's maybe like a top 2 or 3 streamers that have been there, but you know, the difference is that they've never dropped out. You know, they've been committed to it.
Wow.
But they know, because like to them it is just work. I mean, yes, they're having fun playing the games, talking with their friends, interacting with the crowd and stuff like that, but it's still work. You know, sit down for 10 hours a day, but after that you just do whatever you want. And you know, these guys are making bank, right? So
what's bank for the top ones?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, I'm gonna say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's this one CS:GO streamer. He bought a GTR. So yeah, and so you know, I'm saying like these people who constantly get 30,000 viewers at any given time, they're probably making well into like 200, 300 at least, if not more.
Wow, and that's not including, is it like brand deals or anything on Twitch?
Yeah, so you can get sponsored by people, you know, they'll provide you equipment, you know, monetary compensation. But yeah, you know, each of these streamers, it's their own brand, you know, much like in YouTube in the same vein. But you know, you get money from ads, you know, because you can choose when to play an ad, right? And depending on how many people see the ad, you get paid on that. So some streamers will like play ads in between their games, right? So they're done with one match, they'll play an ad. You get money from donations, you get money from your sponsorships, and you probably even get like a contract bonus with Twitch too. So there's
Wow.
a lot of different ways for them. But the thing is, it's very feast or famine, right? So
Oh,
you're,
so
you're either like top dog, you're either doing well, or you're not.
wow, so it's ultra competitive, even
Yeah.
more so than YouTube.
Because everyone can get into it, right? So if you go to like any game, you see there's probably like 200, 300 people streaming, right? But the ones
Wow.
at the bottom of the barrel, they can't even get like two or three, you know. So it's all about having a personality, about being someone that they want to watch.
Wow, I could see that. And that's funny that you meant that we talked about Twitch because live video, Twitch has already been doing it. They've always been live video.
Yep.
And so I've seen, so let's talk about live video, for example, because Twitch, I didn't think about it that way. They've been doing live video since day one.
That is
So
their
li-
yeah.
Yeah,
They
so
are
live-
live video.
Yeah, so live streaming has been at Twitch TV, but everywhere else, it's going to be the future.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I've seen, like if you go to Korea, South Korea, okay, one of the big things people do is watch people live stream eating. Have you seen that?
Yes.
That is, I actually watched one and I'm,
It,
Uh,
it's one of those things where it's like maybe you can't predict like what's gonna be like trending next, right? So it's like, oh, I didn't know I wanted this.
yeah, and you know what? That's what I love about the internet because we get to see trends from all around the world. And when I first saw this, I think it's called mukbang. I think that's what they call it. It reminded me so much of a Twitch stream. At least the few that I've actually seen clips of. It reminded me of that because they're eating all this food, and most times it's very attractive young women. Let's put it out there. They're like these super skinny, small girls, but they're eating like, God, like crazy amounts of food, and then people are like donating money. They have ads on there. They're making a very good living, and if I recall correctly, one of the top ones, she's a female. I think she makes like $5,000 to $10,000 US dollars per month just from doing her live food eating streams,
Yeah.
which is crazy to me.
But you also got to think about stability. This could be like maybe, and that's why a lot of these streamers are like just getting it what they can because they know that
Yep.
eventually it's not going to be the same. It's going to change in a couple of years, but get it while you can. If you can make $10,000 a month by eating in front of people, then
Yeah,
by all means
yeah.
do it.
And I think that's really savvy. If you
Yeah.
are an entrepreneur, you're savvy. Just imagine you were making about $10,000 a month, and that lasts for a year. That's $100,000. And then since you don't have a physical business, there's no cost of goods or inventory. If you've never had a physical business, it's expensive. Now, if you've had an online business, your costs are significantly lower, even if you have a team. Now, in this case, if you're making around $10,000 revenue, and even after you divvy out the profits to the platform that you're on, say you leave with $7,000 in pure profit, within a year, you could have a really good stack of cash, unless you're just blowing it on stupid stuff. And then if you're entrepreneurial, you would take that money and invest it in other businesses.
Yeah.
So I think it really, really is amazing to me. I still can't get over the fact that people would watch people live stream eating.
I think it's just more interesting the fact that like people are actually into that in the first place, right? It's just really interesting to see like what's sticking and what's not sticking, and with
Yeah.
something like as what we think is like as bizarre as that, it gives you a different perspective on it, right? Kind of like
Yes.
makes scratch your
Yes.
head a little bit, but you're like, that's cool. I can appreciate that.
Well, one thing that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
and I agree with, because we're actually doing this right now, is that as we have more people in this earth, we're actually less connected. And so the best way to connect is through this. And so even though you're never going to meet this person physically, you develop a quote unquote relationship with these people, and the brand and everything else, but really with the individual. And I think as more and more people get on the internet, and there's more and more people on this planet, and a lot of people have less time nowadays, and things are just getting really compact, I think this would be even more necessary. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because as you have more things going on and everything gets more packed, you need some type of emotional release, a lot of ways to connect with people. And all you have to do is look at places like New York City, Mexico City, Tokyo, Japan. They're some of the most heavily populated places in the world, but if you actually go and actually talk to people, do psychology studies, a lot of them do not interact with each other physically.
Mm.
So I use that as a model. So I think this would be a good thing overall. I mean, there's definitely going to be some bad things out of it, but I think there's going to be more good than bad. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess, about finding what sticks and what doesn't stick, you know. But
Yeah.
even to us, right? It's like, you know, what if we do find something that is really interesting that we start to do, you know, and I don't know, it naturally just aspires out of nothing, really. And it's just unexpected, and I think those surprises are nice.
Yeah, it is nice, and I think it's even nicer when you can actually earn money. You know, it's not the money aspect, but you could find a means to earn a living from something that you actually enjoy.
And you get entertain other people, you know.
Yes,
You make other people happy too, yeah.
Educate. You know, just it's great. I think it's a great thing overall. I mean, I'm really happy that these technologies are here. You know?
And yeah, I guess like growing up, you know, it's, you know, we have a voice and it is being heard, you know.
Yep, around the world.
Yep. Exactly.
And then in the near future, you know, with natural language technologies, it is able to in real time translate whatever we're talking about in multiple languages. That's going to be extremely, extremely interesting. And also, I keep going back to this whole business thing. From a business standpoint, if you are a content creator and you're creating things now, if you think about technologies like that in the future, you're able to be making more money. There's going to be billionaire internet content creators very soon, and it could be some 13-year-old kid at their parents' house who's going to be the first billionaire on the internet.
Yeah.
I completely believe that.
Yeah.
Hope it's us.
Are we that interesting? I don't know.
Are you not entertained?
What do you guys want to see us eat? You guys want to see us eat? I mean,
I could do that.
Yeah. Just let us know. Yeah, maybe next episode we're just gonna sit there and just eat our faces off.
Yeah, and you know what? On another standpoint, we'd be perfect for that because we fit the demographic of eaters. Because a lot of Asians, we love taking pictures of food, and we actually love eating. And so it would make perfect sense for people to watch us eat. So if you are in Korea, South Korea, or any parts of the world, please tune in because we will be eating.
Yeah, so, you know, in the comments below, let us know what you would like us to eat. I guess try to keep it pretty... I would be willing to try some pretty stuff that's kind of weird out there, but...
Okay, so what's weird? Besides worms and... I don't know.
Maybe more. Let me phrase that. Maybe more exotic. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Some like live squid or something on there.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, this is so funny because you know, food culture is huge. Okay, so what are some types of food that you would think you would definitely like to try to explore?
What about those Rocky Mountain oysters? Are you familiar with that?
I've never heard of that. No, what is that?
I think it's bull testicles.
Oh no, but I have had cow testicles. Yeah, they're called calf. When I went to university, there was this yearly event called calf fries or something, and they're basically cow testicles.
Oh yeah, I mean living in the South, I expect it to be a thing, right? So yeah,
it's pretty gross though. I would not recommend it.
Yeah, there's always Asian balut.
Yeah,
you know, like the chicken embryo or the duck embryo in the egg.
Yeah, right? That's really big in the Philippines and also Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I guess you know, our family eats insects or like fried grasshoppers, June bugs.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, y'all, for anybody who's never traveled internationally or know much about the international community, insects are actually consumed by a lot of the populations around the world, specifically in the Asian regions.
All that protein.
And they're probably the healthiest things that you can eat. They're high in protein, they're low in fat, you know, and what they eat is plants. And so if you've never tried insects, you should.
To take that with a grain of salt, don't just go out and eat some random bug you find out the ground.
That's right. Yeah, don't do it.
We're not trying to advise you to do that. So don't take this as not, you know, not responsible for any bugs you may ingest.
That's right.
After watching this, yeah, let's see. Okay. How about just some good old-fashioned pizza? There we go.
That's right. Pizza with insects on top of it.
Yeah.
So, you know what I would like to do, hopefully, in the future somehow, I would love to, you know, I've always wanted to do, I've been to other countries, but I would love to do an Orient tour, you know, of Asia, where, because Asia is, to me, probably has the most eclectic, diverse types of food styles, because there's so many, from Laos. That's where we're from, by the way, if you're watching this. There's so many different types of foods, and they're mostly healthy. And so I would love to do episodes there. So if you are in those countries, you know, whether it's Southeast Asia, the Philippines, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, wherever it's at, you know, please help us buy us plane tickets. We will go eat with you personally.
or just give us some recommendations for like weird candies or weird snacks out there. You know,
that's a good start. Yes.
Yeah, and then maybe we can buy some from Amazon, and you know, we'll give a review. We'll give a live review as we eat them.
That's a great idea. Yes, for anybody who wants to send us food.
Yeah.
We'll recommend it.
Yes. Anyway, so this episode is running quite a bit late now, so you know what? Let's just go ahead and end it there. Check out our next episode. We're gonna be eating something. We don't know what yet. But I don't know, maybe you're into that. I mean, maybe we stop talking about technology, just start eating food. Maybe we'll get
That's right.
a lot more interest in that.
Yeah, well, because we are using technology to stream it, so that's perfect. So
I mean, maybe even go like some weird space where we eat like maybe some certain foods off like certain technologies. Like, oh, I'm eating a slice of pizza off my Galaxy S6 or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
What happens when you, I don't know.
Now, that would be a brand promotion that they've probably never seen before.
Yep,
you know,
exactly.
Samsung's promoting you to eat sushi on top of their phones.
All right, here's a video of me using 2 Surface Pro pens to eat sushi.
Yeah, that's an expensive meal.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and end it here for today. You know, thank you guys for making it this far. Thanks for listening. You know, really glad we can discuss all this with you guys, and yeah, let us know what you want to talk about, what you think, movies, recommendations, anything. You know, I'm sure by this point you know what we're into, so you know, feel free to share with us what you're into, and we'll definitely talk about it next show, and maybe eat some weird stuff.
All right, thanks for watching.
All right, thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.